1976, Steve Jobs co-founded Apple Computer, Inc., a company that aimed to make personal computing a staple of everyday life. His partner, Steve Wozniak, a technical genius, designed the Apple I, a single-board computer sold as a kit for hobbyists. Jobs, with his marketing vision, handled business operations. Working out of Jobs' garage in Los Altos, California, they developed the Apple II, launched in 1977. Unlike its predecessor, the Apple II was a fully assembled personal computer with color graphics, a keyboard, and expandability, making it accessible and appealing to a broader market. Its success, driven by Jobs' focus on a user-friendly design and Wozniak's engineering, established Apple as a pioneer in the burgeoning personal computer industry. By 1980, Apple went public, valued at $1.8 billion, setting the stage for its transformative impact on technology. These are the early Apple stories, as written by the amazing people and colorful personalities that collaborated to make computing what we know it today. Good Earth. It's from folklore.org. Author Andy Hertzfeld, October 1980. In 1979 and 1980, Jeff Raskin's Macintosh project was a four-person research effort with a tenuous existence. It wasn't considered to be very important within Apple, and was almost canceled a couple times. When Apple had another major reorganization in the fall of 1980, it was terminated again, but Jeff pleaded with Mike Scott and Mike Markula for one more time, and was granted 3 more months to show he was really onto something. As part of the reorg, the four-person Macintosh team, Jeff Raskin, Brian Howard, Burrell Smith, Bud Tribble, soon to be joined by Joanna Hoffman, relocated to a small office building a few blocks from the main Apple campus. The new office, located at 20863 Stevens Creek Boulevard, was called the Good Earth Building, because it was adjacent to a Good Earth restaurant. In fact, the office used to be Apple's very first office in Cupertino, after they moved out of Steve Jobs' parents' house, and was later used as the first office of the Lisa project, when the Lisa team had fewer than 10 employees. The Mac team moved in, outfitting it with lots of beanbag chairs and all kinds of interesting toys. Jeff was very playful, and always encouraged his team to express themselves creatively. So the office quickly began to look more like a daycare center than an engineering lab, overflowing with playthings. Periodically, work would cease, and the entire team, plus any visitors who might be on the premise, would play some organized game, usually led by Jeff and Brian. The favorite game, which was usually played at least once a day, just after lunch, was a form of tag played with Nerf balls. There were dozens of brightly colored Nerf balls scattered around the office. The rules would be improvised, but usually the person who was it would confer ithood on someone else by hitting them with a Nerf ball. This inspired everyone to surround their work area with barricades made out of cardboard to provide cover during the game, making part of the office look like a cardboard maze. Jeff and Brian were both serious musicians, so the office was also littered with a variety of musical instruments, sometimes erupting in spontaneous concerts. Another one of Jeff's interests was model airplanes and automobiles, especially radio-controlled ones. It wasn't unusual to see a radio-controlled car dart underneath your desk, and occasionally everyone would go outside to see the maiden voyage of the latest plane. Jeff was writing his Book of Macintosh during much of 1979 and all of 1980, articulating his vision in ever finer detail. Burrell's 6809-based prototype came alive in the early part of 1980. But then he went off to work on a low-cost Apple II project. Jeff hired Mark LeBrun to write software in early 1980, but Mark was more interested in Lisp machines than a limited memory microcomputer like the Mac. So nothing much happened until he was replaced by Bud Tribble in September 1980. Bud knew Jeff from UCSD and was also good friends with Bill Atkinson. They had a part-time, two-person consulting company together in Seattle called Synaptic Systems. While they were both graduate students, Bill and Jeff convinced Bud to take a one-year leave of absence from the MD/PhD program while he was pursuing at University of Washington at Seattle. Bud was in the 5th year of a 7 MD/PhD program. Instead of returning to med school, Bud moved into a spare room at Bill Atkinson's house and started work on the Mac project at Apple. He quickly began to breathe life into Burrell's languishing prototype, writing some graphics routines for the 6809. So even though the Mac project had been going for more than a year now, the move to Good Earth in October 1980 came at an interesting time, with a new but limited lease on life and software finally starting to happen. But the Good Earth era was rather short-lived. Around 2 months after the move, Bud convinced Burrell to consider using the 68,000 processor instead of the 6809. Burrell came up with a brilliant design, catching the attention of Steve Jobs. Steve took over the project and quickly recruited most of the early Apple II crew that he trusted, including Steve Wozniak, Rod Holt, and moved the project to larger offices a half-mile away in Texaco Towers.